The Galactic Council's unprovoked attack on Earth leaves 800,000 human girls dead. Sirens wail as Admiral Ethan Baker sprints through the Pentagon's corridors, his heart pounding. He bursts into the emergency command center, where grim-faced military leaders and government officials huddle around glowing screens. "Status report," Baker demands, his voice steady despite the chaos. A junior officer responds, "Sir, satellite footage confirms multiple strikes. Schools, neighborhoods, they're gone." The room falls silent as images flicker across the main display. Smoldering craters mar the landscape where bustling communities once stood. Baker's jaw clenches as he processes the scale of destruction. "Attackers identified," another officer interjects. "Lodosians, advanced species, key players in the Galactic Council." Baker's mind races. Earth's defenses, thought to be state-of-the-art, proved useless against the alien onslaught. He turns to the Secretary of Defense, seeking answers. "Admiral," the Secretary begins, her voice low, "there's something you need to know." The room clears, leaving only the highest-ranking officials. The Secretary activates a hidden panel, revealing classified files. "Beneath the Mariana Trench lies our last hope," she explains. "An ancient fleet built by our ancestors. Technology beyond our current understanding." Baker's eyes widen as he absorbs the implications. "Why wasn't I informed earlier?" "Need-to-know basis," the Secretary replies. "And now you need to know. You're to command this fleet, Admiral. It's our only chance for survival and retaliation." Hours later, Baker descends in a submersible to a secret underwater base. As he steps onto the platform, he's greeted by an unexpected figure, a Lodosian. "Dr. Mira," she introduces herself, noting Baker's tension. "I defected when I learned of my species' plans. I'm here to help." Together they enter a vast hangar. Row upon row of sleek starships stretch into the darkness, untouched for millennia. Baker marvels at their alien yet familiar design. "These ships possess capabilities far beyond current human technology," Mira explains, activating a nearby console. Ancient systems hum to life, holographic displays flickering into existence. Baker turns to Mira, determination etched on his face. "How quickly can we get them operational?" "With the right crew, days," she responds. "But mastering their systems will take time we may not have." "Then we'll have to learn fast," Baker says, already compiling a mental list of Earth's best pilots and soldiers. As they work, Baker grapples with the weight of his responsibility. This mission isn't just about retaliation. It's humanity's last stand against extinction. The fate of Earth hangs in the balance, dependent on his ability to unlock the secrets of this ancient fleet and strike back before the Lodosians can launch another devastating attack. With each passing moment, more systems spring to life. Baker watches as dormant weapons power up, shields flicker into existence, and engines pulse with barely contained energy. He realizes that these ships represent not just humanity's past, but its future, if they can survive long enough to claim it. The enormity of the task ahead settles over Baker like a shroud. He must master this advanced technology, form a battle strategy, and lead a counterattack against a vastly superior force, all while the ashes of 800,000 innocent lives demand justice. Baker turns to Dr. Mira, his voice resolute. "Let's wake the fleet. It's time humanity took its place among the stars, whether the Galactic Council likes it or not." As the ancient fleet stirred to life, Baker felt a surge of anticipation coursing through his veins. The cavernous hangar hummed with activity as technicians and engineers swarmed over the sleek vessels, bringing systems online one by one. "Admiral, you need to see this," Dr. Mira called out, her voice tinged with excitement. Baker hurried over to where she stood before a holographic display, its azure light casting an otherworldly glow on her features. The screen showed a detailed schematic of one of the ships, highlighting systems that defied Baker's understanding of physics. "Energy shields," Mira explained, pointing to a pulsing diagram. "And here, faster-than-light drives. The weaponry, it's capable of devastating entire planets." Baker's eyes widened as he absorbed the implications. These ships weren't just Earth's defense. They were a force that could reshape the galaxy. "Gather our best," Baker ordered, turning to his aide. I want top pilots, engineers, and soldiers. We'll need every skilled hand we can get." As if on cue, a familiar face appeared in the hangar entrance. Colonel Marcus Chen, Baker's trusted second-in-command, strode purposefully towards them. "Reporting for duty, sir," Chen said, snapping a crisp salute. "I've brought a team of our finest, as requested." Baker nodded approvingly. "Good work, Marcus. We'll need them all." As the newly assembled crew familiarized themselves with their extraordinary vessels, Baker found himself drawn to the largest ship, clearly the fleet's flagship. Something about it called to him, a whisper at the edge of his consciousness. "Dr. Mira," he called out, "is there a way to access the interior of this one?" The Ladosian scientist joined him, her eyes scanning the smooth hull. "There should be... here." Her fingers danced across a nearly invisible panel, and a section of the ship's side slid open with a soft hiss. Baker stepped inside, Mira close behind. The ship's corridors were a marvel of design, seamlessly blending form and function. As they explored deeper into the vessel's heart, they came upon a sealed chamber. "What do you make of this?" Baker asked, running his hand along the door's edge. Mira studied the intricate patterns etched into the metal. "It's some kind of lock, but unlike anything I've seen before. Perhaps if we..." Before she could finish, the door slid open, responding to some unseen command. The chamber beyond was bathed in a soft, pulsing light. As they entered, a shimmering figure materialized before them, a holographic interface of breathtaking complexity. It spoke, its voice resonating with ancient wisdom. "I am Aria," it announced, "ancient reconnaissance and intelligence apparatus. How may I assist you, defenders of Earth?" Baker and Mira exchanged stunned glances. "Aria," Baker began cautiously, "can you tell us about this fleet? Why was it built?" The hologram's form shifted, displaying scenes of a long-ago conflict. "This fleet was created to defend Earth against a threat similar to the one you now face. The precursor civilization foresaw the dangers that lurk among the stars." As Aria shared crucial information about the fleet's history and capabilities, alarms began blaring throughout the base. Baker's comm unit crackled to life. "Admiral!" It was Chen, his voice tight with urgency. "Earth's orbital defenses have detected another Ladosian fleet approaching. We're out of time." Baker's mind raced, weighing their options. The fleet wasn't fully checked, the crew barely trained. But they had no choice. "All hands to stations," he ordered, his voice carrying through the ship's intercom. "We launch now." The next few minutes were a blur of activity. Crew members scrambled to their positions, engines roared to life, and the massive hangar doors ground open. Baker stood on the bridge of the flagship, watching as the fleet rose from the depths of the ocean. Water cascaded off gleaming hulls as the ships broke the surface, a sight that left even the most hardened military observers in awe. As they ascended through the atmosphere, the approaching Ladosian fleet came into view, a swarm of hostile vessels bearing down on Earth. "Weapons hot," Baker commanded, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "Engage the enemy." The space around Earth erupted into chaos. Energy beams lanced across the void, shields flared as they absorbed punishing blows, and explosions blossomed in silence against the backdrop of stars. Baker watched as his crew grappled with the advanced systems, their training kicking in despite the alien nature of the technology. Slowly but surely, they began to gain the upper hand. The Ladosian ships, caught off guard by the humans' unexpected capabilities, found themselves outgunned and outmaneuvered. One by one, they fell to the ancient fleet's superior firepower. As the last enemy vessel turned tail and fled, a cheer went up across the human fleet. But Baker knew their trials were just getting started. No sooner had the Ladosians retreated than an urgent communication came through from Earth's political leaders. Baker listened grimly as they relayed the Galactic Council's demands: immediate surrender or face total annihilation. He looked around the bridge at the faces of his crew, tired, exhilarated, and filled with a newfound sense of purpose. He thought of the devastation wrought upon Earth, of the 800,000 lives lost, of the threat that still loomed over humanity's future. His decision was made in an instant. Plot a course for the Galactic Council's headquarters, Baker ordered, his voice ringing with authority. It's time we bring the fight to them. As the fleet prepared for its first faster-than-light jump, Dr. Mira approached Baker, her expression grave. "Admiral, there's something you should know about the Council," she began, sharing vital intelligence about its defenses and political structure. The picture she painted was one of corruption and oppression, a small group of species systematically eliminating potential rivals. Baker nodded, his persistence strengthened by this new information. They weren't just fighting for Earth now, but for the future of the galaxy itself. The fleet's engines hummed with power, the energy buildup visible even from Earth's surface. As the countdown to the jump began, Baker addressed his crew one final time. "We carry with us the hopes of humanity," he said, his words reaching every ship in the fleet. "But more than that, we carry the potential for a new era of galactic justice. Whatever awaits us at the Council's headquarters, know that our cause is just." With a flash of light that momentarily outshone the stars, the ancient fleet vanished from Earth's orbit, hurtling through space towards the heart of galactic politics. As the familiar blue of Earth faded from view, replaced by the streaking lights of FTL travel, Baker steeled himself for the challenges ahead. They were about to make history, or die trying. The ancient fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel in a brilliant flash, decelerating rapidly as they approached the outskirts of the Galactic Council's home system. Baker felt a momentary disorientation as the ship's artificial gravity compensated for the sudden shift in velocity. "Status report," he called out, his eyes fixed on the main view screen. Colonel Chen's fingers danced across his console. "All ships present and accounted for, Admiral. No damage reported from the jump." Baker nodded, his attention drawn to the massive structures looming ahead. The Galactic Council's headquarters dominated the view, a sprawling space station that dwarfed even their impressive fleet. Surrounding it was a dense network of defensive installations and warships, their weapons undoubtedly primed and ready. "Hold position," Baker ordered. "Maintain a safe distance. We need to assess the situation before making our next move." Dr. Mira approached, her expression grave. "Admiral, I have crucial information about the Council's defenses and political structure." As Mira began her briefing, Baker's mind raced. A frontal assault would be suicide, even with their advanced technology. They needed a more surgical approach. "The Council's main chamber is here," Mira said, indicating a location deep within the station's core. "It's where all key decisions are made." Baker's eyes narrowed as a plan began to form. "We need to get inside," he said. "A small team, using our most advanced stealth technology." He turned to Chen. "Colonel, assemble a strike team. You and Dr. Mira will accompany me. We're going to infiltrate that station and confront the Council directly." As preparations for the mission began, an urgent transmission came through from Earth. Baker's heart sank as he listened to the report. A second Ladosian attack force was en route to Earth, expected to arrive in less than 2 days. "We're out of time," Baker muttered. He addressed his crew, his voice firm. "Our mission just became even more critical. We not only need to confront the Council, but also find a way to stop that incoming attack." The infiltration team boarded a sleek shuttle equipped with the ancient fleet's most advanced cloaking technology. As they approached the station, Baker marveled at the effectiveness of their stealth systems. Despite the dense sensor network, they slipped past the outer defenses undetected. "There," Mira whispered, pointing to a nondescript section of the station's hull. "A maintenance airlock, rarely used." Chen piloted the shuttle with precision, bringing them alongside the airlock. The docking procedure was tense, but they managed to gain entry without raising any alarms. Inside the station, Baker was struck by the stark contrast between its imposing exterior and the utilitarian corridors they now navigated. Mira led them through the labyrinth, her knowledge of the layout proving invaluable as they avoided security patrols. As they neared the Council chambers, voices drifted from around a corner. Baker held up a hand, signaling the team to halt. 2 Ladosian officials walked past, engrossed in conversation. "The human genetic samples are even more promising than we hoped," one said. "Once we've subjugated their population, we'll have an endless supply." "And the Council suspects nothing?" the other asked. "They believe our story about eliminating a potential threat. They have no idea about the genetic trait that could extend all our lifespans." Baker felt a cold fury building inside him as the officials moved out of earshot. The true nature of the attack on Earth, the senseless loss of life, was far worse than they had imagined. "We end this now," Baker growled, his purpose hardening. They pressed on, finally reaching the antechamber to the council's main meeting room. As they prepared to enter, a group of guards rounded the corner. "Intruders!" one shouted, reaching for his weapon. What followed was a blur of motion and sound. Baker and Chen moved with practiced efficiency, their advanced weapons making short work of the guards. But the element of surprise was lost. Alarms blared throughout the station. Baker knew their original plan was no longer viable. He made a split-second decision. "Barricade the doors," he ordered. "We're changing tactics." As Chen and Mira secured their position, Baker accessed a nearby communications panel. His fingers flew over the unfamiliar controls, guided by an almost instinctual understanding of the technology. "This is Admiral Ethan Baker of Earth," he began, his voice broadcasting across all channels. "I speak not just to the Galactic Council, but to all species within range of this transmission." Baker laid out the Ledosians' true motives, their plans for humanity, and the existence of the ancient human fleet. He demanded an immediate cessation of hostilities against Earth, the dissolution of the current council leadership, and a full investigation into the Ledosians' actions. The response was immediate and chaotic. Through the sealed doors, they could hear shouts and the sound of running feet. The station's internal communications erupted with a cacophony of voices, shock, outrage, and confusion mixing into a storm of noise. Suddenly, Arya's voice came through Baker's personal communicator. "Admiral, multiple ships are breaking formation. They appear to be moving to intercept the Ledosian attack force headed for Earth." A glimmer of hope sparked in Baker's chest. Some council members, it seemed, were taking his words to heart. But their position remained precarious. They were trapped in the antechamber, surrounded by hostile forces, with the fate of Earth still hanging in the balance. As the sounds of approaching security forces grew louder, Baker knew that the next few moments would determine not just the fate of humanity, but the future of the entire galaxy. He turned to his team, his mind already formulating their next move. The real challenge was just beginning. The station's internal communications system crackled to life, broadcasting Baker's message across every deck and corridor. The effect was instantaneous. Alarms blared with renewed intensity as the station erupted into chaos. Through the sealed doors of the antechamber, Baker could hear shouts and the thunder of running feet. The cacophony of voices over the comm channels swelled into a storm of shock, outrage, and confusion. "Admiral!" Arya's voice cut through the noise on Baker's personal communicator. "Multiple ships are breaking formation. They appear to be moving to intercept the Ledosian attack force headed for Earth." A spark of hope ignited in Baker's chest. Some council members were taking his words to heart, acting swiftly to protect Earth. But their position remained precarious. Trapped in the antechamber, surrounded by hostile forces, they had only moments before security teams would be upon them. "Barricade the doors," Baker ordered, his mind racing. "We need to hold this position." Chen and Mira sprang into action, using whatever they could find to reinforce the entrance. The sound of approaching security forces grew louder, punctuated by the sharp reports of energy weapons. Suddenly, the lights flickered and died, plunging sections of the station into darkness. Emergency power kicked in, bathing the corridors in an eerie red glow. "Ledosian sabotage," Baker muttered, his eyes narrowing. "They're trying to disrupt the station's systems." As if in response to his words, a new voice crackled over the comm system. "This is Ambassador Zorn of Arcturus. I am invoking emergency protocols to convene an immediate full council session. All members are required to attend." Baker exchanged glances with Mira and Chen. This unexpected ally could be the key to turning the tide. The door to the antechamber shuddered under a heavy impact. Chen readied his weapon, his face a mask of willpower. "They're breaching!" As the door began to buckle, Baker made a split-second decision. "We can't stay here. We need to get to that council session." With a final thunderous crash, the door gave way. Ledosian security forces poured into the room, energy weapons blazing. Baker and his team returned fire, their advanced weapons cutting through the attackers' defenses with surprising ease. Using the chaos to their advantage, they fought their way out of the antechamber and into the dimly lit corridor beyond. Baker took point, relying on Mira's knowledge of the station's layout to guide them towards the main council chamber. As they navigated the labyrinthine passageways, Baker's communicator chirped again. "Admiral!" Arya's voice came through, clear despite the interference. "I've decrypted Ladosian communications. They have a secret genetic research facility hidden in an asteroid belt at the edge of their territory. It contains vital evidence of their experiments on human DNA." Baker's mind raced, weighing their options. This information could be the key to fully exposing the Ladosian plot, but they couldn't afford to lose their momentum here on the station. "Chen!" Baker called out as they paused at an intersection. "Take a team and secure that research facility. We need that evidence." Chen nodded, quickly assembling a group from the allies they'd made during their advance. As they prepared to depart, Baker gripped Chen's shoulder. "Be careful out there, Colonel." With Chen's team on their way, Baker, Mira, and a handful of trusted allies pressed on towards the council chamber. They encountered pockets of resistance from Ladosian loyalists, each skirmish slowing their progress, but failing to halt their advance. As they neared their destination, Baker's communicator crackled once more. "Admiral," Chen's voice came through, breathless but triumphant. "We've breached the facility. You won't believe what we've found here. Transmitting data now." Baker's eyes widened as he reviewed the information. Detailed logs of harvesting operations on Earth, genetic profiles of thousands of humans, and plans for large-scale DNA extraction flashed across his screen. "This is it," he breathed, looking up at Mira. "This is the proof we need." With renewed perseverance, they pushed forward. The sounds of heated debate grew louder as they approached the main council chamber. Ambassador Zorn's security detail met them at the entrance, ushering them inside. The chamber was a scene of barely controlled chaos. Representatives from dozens of species argued vehemently, their translator devices creating a dizzying babel of languages. At the center of it all stood Ambassador Zorn, his tall, slender form radiating an aura of calm authority. As Baker entered, a hush fell over the assembly. All eyes turned to the human admiral who had thrown the galaxy into turmoil. Taking a deep breath, Baker stepped forward, the weight of Earth's future heavy on his shoulders. "Esteemed members of the Council," he began, his voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. "I come before you not just as a representative of Earth, but as a voice for justice in our galaxy." With that, Baker launched into his address, laying out the evidence of the Ladosians' crimes and the corruption that had allowed them to go unchecked for so long. As he spoke, the data from Chen's team flashed on screens around the chamber, leaving no doubt about the veracity of his claims. The council members listened in stunned silence, the implications of Baker's words sinking in. As he concluded his speech, Baker knew that the next few moments would determine not just the fate of humanity, but the future of galactic politics itself. The chamber erupted into a flurry of discussion, accusations flying as various factions sought to distance themselves from the Ladosians or call for immediate action. Ambassador Zorn stepped forward, his voice cutting through the din. "We must vote," he declared, his gaze sweeping the assembly, "to suspend the current council leadership pending a full investigation and to take immediate action against the Ladosian threat." As the voting process began, Baker's communicator chirped once more. It was Arya, her voice urgent. "Admiral, the situation near Earth has changed. You need to see this." Baker's heart raced as he pulled up the tactical display. The battle for Earth's future was nowhere near the end, and new challenges loomed on the horizon. Horizon. Baker's eyes widened as he took in the tactical display, the gravity of the situation settling heavily upon him. "Earth's defenses are holding," Arya reported, her voice calm despite the urgency of the situation. "But a new threat has emerged." Before Baker could respond, the doors to the council chamber burst open. Representatives from hundreds of species poured in, their faces a mix of confusion, anger, and fear. Ambassador Zorn strode to the center of the room, his tall form commanding attention. "Esteemed members of the council," Zorn's voice boomed, cutting through the din, We face a crisis unlike any in our history. Admiral Baker of Earth has evidence that demands our immediate attention." All eyes turned to Baker as he stepped forward. The chamber fell silent, the weight of countless alien gazes pressing upon him. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for what was to come. "Honorable representatives," Baker began, his voice clear and resolute. "The attack on Earth was not a preemptive strike against a potential threat. It was the first step in a Ladosian plot to harvest human genetic material for their own gain." Murmurs rippled through the assembly as Baker presented the evidence transmitted by Chen's team. Holographic displays flickered to life, showing detailed logs of harvesting operations, genetic profiles, and plans for large-scale DNA extraction. "These files," Baker continued, gesturing to the displays, "were recovered from a secret Ladosian research facility. They prove beyond doubt the true nature of the attack on my homeworld." The chamber erupted into chaos as the implications sank in. Species after species demanded explanations, their translator devices creating a cacophony of outrage. Amidst the uproar, a group of Ladosian representatives pushed their way to the front. "Lies!" one of them shouted, his scales flaring in anger. "These humans fabricate evidence to justify their unprovoked attack on this station. They must be punished." As the Ladosians continued their protests, a tall, battle-scarred figure stepped forward from their ranks. The chamber fell silent once more as General Kraz, a high-ranking Ladosian military officer, raised his hand. "Enough," Kraz growled, his voice filled with disgust. "I can no longer stand by while my people commit these atrocities." The general turned to face the assembly, his posture rigid with grit. "Everything Admiral Baker has said is true. I have witnessed the conspiracy within our high command firsthand. We have betrayed not only humanity, but the very principles this council stands for." Kraz's words sent shockwaves through the chamber. As the council representatives argued amongst themselves, Baker's communicator chirped urgently. He glanced down, his face paling at the message from Earth. "Ambassador Zorn," Baker said, his voice low and tense, "Earth's defenses have detected a hidden Ladosian strike force approaching from an unexpected vector. They're using advanced stealth technology to evade detection." Zorn's eyes narrowed as he processed the information. Without hesitation, he stepped onto the central platform, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Esteemed colleagues," he announced, "I call for an immediate vote to condemn the Ladosian actions and authorize a joint military response to defend Earth." The council chamber erupted into heated debates. Some species, fearing human retaliation, advocated for a diplomatic solution. Others called for swift military intervention against the Ladosians. As the political maneuvering unfolded, Baker received another transmission from Chen's team at the Ladosian research facility. His expression darkened as he read the message. "Ambassador," Baker said, turning to Zorn, "we have a problem. The Ladosians have already begun distributing the harvested human genetic material to several other council species." Zorn's normally composed features twisted in shock. This changes everything," he muttered. Baker nodded grimly. "I need to return to my ship. Earth's defenses won't hold against this new threat without support." As Baker prepared to leave, alarms blared throughout the station. A group of council representatives, their faces contorted with fear and desperation, had seized control of a nearby security terminal. "We can't allow the humans to leave," one of them shouted. "Their technology is too dangerous. We must destroy their fleet to maintain the balance of power." Baker's hand flew to his weapon as Zorn stepped between him and the radical faction. The ambassador's voice was steel as he addressed the group. "Think carefully about your next actions," Zorn warned. "The consequences of this moment will echo through our galaxy for generations." As Zorn worked to defuse the situation, Baker caught Dr. Mira's eye. She nodded, understanding his unspoken command, and slipped away towards the station's main control center. Baker's mind raced as he weighed his options. Earth hung in the balance, threatened by the incoming Ladosian strike force. The ancient fleet held the key to their defense, but activating its hidden weapons system could have unforeseen consequences. With a heavy heart, Baker made his decision. He opened a secure channel to Aria. "Aria," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Activate Protocol Omega. It's time to show the galaxy what the ancient fleet can really do. As Baker's order was transmitted across the stars, he turned back to face the tumultuous council chamber. The next few moments would determine not just the fate of Earth, but the course of galactic history. And as alarms continued to blare and tensions rose to a fever pitch, Admiral Ethan Baker prepared himself for the battle that lay ahead. With a deep breath, Baker tapped his communicator and gave the order that would change the course of galactic history. Aria, initiate Protocol Omega. Activate Starfall. As the command raced across the vastness of space, Baker turned to face the chaos in the council chamber. Alarms blared, and tensions rose to a fever pitch as various factions argued and threatened one another. Suddenly, a brilliant flash of energy illuminated the station's viewports, bathing the chamber in an otherworldly glow. The assembled representatives fell silent, their attention drawn to the spectacular display unfolding before them. What is that? Ambassador Zorn asked, his normally composed features etched with awe and concern. Baker stepped forward, his voice steady as he addressed the stunned assembly. That, Ambassador, is humanity's last line of defense. Starfall, a hidden weapons system within our ancient fleet, designed to neutralize threats on a scale we've never before encountered. As he spoke, the tactical displays around the chamber came to life, showing the unfolding battle near Earth. The Ladosian strike force, once hidden by advanced stealth technology, suddenly appeared on the screens, their ships fully exposed and vulnerable. Impossible! A Ladosian representative exclaimed, his scales paling in shock. Our stealth systems are unparalleled. Baker allowed himself a grim smile. Not anymore. The chamber watched in stunned silence as Earth's defense forces, joined by allied council ships, launched a coordinated assault on the exposed Ladosian vessels. The battle that had seemed so dire mere moments ago quickly turned in humanity's favor. As the immediate threat to Earth diminished, the political storm within the council station intensified. Species implicated in the distribution of human genetic material found themselves under intense scrutiny, with accusations and denials flying across the chamber. Ambassador Zorn, seeing the potential for further violence, stepped onto the central platform. His tall form radiated authority as he addressed the fractious assembly. Esteemed colleagues, he began, his voice cutting through the din, we stand at a crossroads. The actions of the Ladosians and their collaborators have shaken the very foundations of our council, but we must not allow chaos to reign. Zorn's gaze swept the chamber, meeting the eyes of key representatives. I propose the formation of an emergency transitional government. This body will address the current crisis and investigate all parties implicated in these heinous acts. Only through unity and transparency can we hope to move forward. As Zorn worked to stabilize the political situation, Baker received an urgent transmission from Colonel Chen. The admiral's face darkened as he listened to the report, his hand clenching into a fist at his side. Ambassador, Baker called out, his voice tight with controlled anger. We have a new development. Colonel Chen's team has made a discovery at the Ladosian research facility, one that changes everything. Zorn turned to Baker, concern etched on his features. What is it, Admiral? Baker's eyes blazed as he addressed the chamber. Chen's team has found cryochambers, thousands of them, each one containing a human child, kept in stasis for ongoing genetic experiments. A collective gasp rippled through the assembly. Even those species most wary of humanity couldn't hide their horror at this revelation. This is monstrous, a Colossian representative exclaimed, her tendrils writhing in agitation. To experiment on children, it goes against every principle of sentient rights. The mood in the chamber shifted palpably. Species that had been hesitant to support Earth now voiced their outrage at the Ladosians' actions. The Ladosian representatives found themselves increasingly isolated, their protests falling on deaf ears. As the political landscape shifted, Baker received another transmission. This time, it was from Earth's Defense Command. A smile tugged at the corner of his mouth as he listened to the report. It seems, Baker announced, that Earth's planetary defense systems, enhanced by our ancient technology, have successfully repelled the remaining Ladosian forces. Our military, working alongside our new allies, is conducting a thorough sweep of the solar system to ensure no hidden threats remain. A cheer went up from Earth supporters in the chamber. Baker, seeing an opportunity to secure his planet's future, stepped forward once more. "Esteemed members of the Council," he began, his voice clear and confident, "Earth stands ready to take its place among the galactic community. In the spirit of cooperation and mutual benefit, I offer you this proposal. Earth will share some of the ancient fleet's non-military technology with all Council species." A murmur of excitement rippled through the chamber. Baker continued, "In exchange, we ask for Earth's immediate admission to the Galactic Council and guaranteed protection against future aggression." The chamber erupted into animated discussions as species contemplated the potential benefits of access to such advanced technology. However, amidst the growing support for Baker's proposal, a group of radical council members made their move. Alarms blared once more as the radical faction attempted to seize control of the station's main power core. Their plan, born of fear and desperation, was to overload the core and destroy the station along with the human delegation. But Dr. Mira, anticipating such a move, had already implemented safeguards in the station's systems. With a few quick commands on her datapad, she triggered a localized power shutdown, trapping the radical faction in the lower levels of the station. As security forces moved to apprehend the would-be saboteurs, Baker's communicator chimed with an urgent message from Area. The AI's usually calm voice held a note of concern that made Baker's blood run cold. "Admiral," Area reported, "I've detected unusual energy readings from the Ladosian homeworld. Initial analysis suggests that hardline elements within their government may be preparing to deploy a superweapon of unprecedented power. Our models indicate it could potentially destroy entire star systems." Baker's mind raced as he processed this new threat. The fragile peace they had fought so hard to achieve now hung by a thread. As he prepared to address the council once more, Baker knew that the greatest challenge of his career, and perhaps the greatest threat the galaxy had ever faced, lay ahead. Ahead. The Admiral's mind raced, processing the gravity of Area's warning. He turned to address the council, his voice carrying the weight of urgency. "Esteemed representatives," Baker began, his tone commanding attention, "we face a crisis that threatens not just Earth, but the entire galaxy. Aria has detected energy readings consistent with a superweapon of unprecedented power on the Ladosian homeworld. We must act now to prevent its deployment." The chamber erupted into a cacophony of voices, fear and outrage mingling in equal measure. Ambassador Zorn stepped forward, his tall form radiating authority as he raised his hands for silence. "Admiral Baker is right," Zorn declared. "We cannot allow such a weapon to exist. I propose we form an emergency coalition to address this threat immediately." As Zorn worked tirelessly to solidify the transitional government, Baker sprung into action. He opened a secure channel to the ancient fleet. "Aria, initiate full mobilization of all available ships. Set course for the Ladosian homeworld. We may be looking at a confrontation unlike anything we've seen before." The AI's response was immediate. "Understood, Admiral. Mobilization protocols initiated. The fleet will be ready for departure in 17 minutes. Baker nodded, then turned his attention to Colonel Chen. "Colonel, I need you and your team to infiltrate the Ladosian weapon facility. Your mission is to disable that superweapon before it can be deployed. Dr. Mira will provide intelligence support." Chen's holographic image nodded grimly. "Understood, sir. We'll get it done." As Chen's team prepared for their high-stakes mission, Dr. Mira immersed herself in the complex web of Ladosian technology. Her fingers flew across holographic interfaces, her mind racing to decode encrypted transmissions and unravel the secrets of the superweapon. "Admiral," Mira called out, her eyes never leaving her workstation, "I've identified potential weaknesses in the weapon's design, transmitting the data to Colonel Chen now. It's not much, but it might give them a fighting chance." Baker acknowledged her work with a nod, then turned his attention back to the council chamber. Ambassador Zorn had successfully negotiated the temporary suspension of all implicated species from council decision-making processes. The Ladosian representatives and their remaining allies found themselves sidelined, their protests falling on deaf ears. With the political obstacles cleared, Baker addressed the assembled representatives once more. The ancient fleet is mobilizing as we speak. I call upon all council species to join us in this fight. The Ladosian threat affects us all. As Baker spoke, the view screens around the chamber lit up with tactical displays. Ships from multiple species began to assemble, forming a joint task force unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Back on Earth, the human military worked in concert with Allied Council forces to fortify the solar system. Advanced sensor arrays, powered by technology from the ancient fleet, sprang to life, creating an early warning system capable of detecting even the most sophisticated stealth ships. Admiral Baker boarded the flagship of the ancient fleet, his steps echoing through corridors that had lain dormant for millennia. As he settled into the command chair, he felt the weight of history pressing down upon him. "Arya, status report," Baker ordered. The AI's voice filled the bridge. "All systems operational, Admiral. The Joint Task Force is assembled and awaiting your command." Baker took a deep breath, then gave the order that would change the course of galactic history. "All ships engage FTL drives. Set course for the Ladosian homeworld." The fleet surged forward, reality warping around them as they plunged into faster-than-light travel. As they approached Ladosian space, they encountered heavy resistance. Loyalist Ladosian forces had assembled a formidable defensive line, their ships dripping with weapons. The space around them erupted into chaos as the battle began. Energy weapons lanced across the void, shields flared and failed, and explosions bloomed in the silence of space. Baker's voice rang out over the comms, coordinating the attack with a precision born of years of experience. Meanwhile, on the surface of the Ladosian homeworld, Colonel Chen and his team moved swiftly through the shadows of the superweapon facility. They encountered fierce resistance from elite Ladosian guards, but their training and drive saw them through. As they fought their way to the weapons control center, Chen received Dr. Mira's intelligence update. His eyes widened as he processed the information. "Team, change of plans," Chen announced, his voice low and urgent. "The weapon is powered by a quantum singularity. Conventional sabotage is out of the question. We need to trigger a controlled implosion." The implications of his words hung heavy in the air. One of his team members, a seasoned veteran named Rodriguez, voiced what they were all thinking. "Sir, an implosion of that magnitude, it would devastate a significant portion of the planet." Chen nodded grimly. "I know, but if we don't stop this weapon, the entire galaxy could pay the price." As Chen's team worked to set up the implosion sequence, Admiral Baker's fleet finally broke through the Ladosian defenses. They established orbit around the homeworld, their sensors trained on the superweapon facility. Baker received Chen's report, his face growing pale as he realized the terrible choice before him. "Arya, analyze the potential civilian casualties if we proceed with the implosion." The AI's response was swift and clinical. "Estimated civilian casualties in the millions, Admiral. The affected area would be rendered uninhabitable for decades." Baker closed his eyes, the weight of command pressing down on him like never before. As he grappled with the decision, Dr. Mira's voice cut through his thoughts. "Admiral, I've intercepted Ladosian communications. They're activating the superweapon. Multiple targets, including Earth and several Council homeworlds. We're out of time." Baker's eyes snapped open, his decision made. "Colonel Chen, proceed with the implosion. Arya, initiate emergency protocol Omega-7. We're going to contain this blast." As Chen's team began the implosion sequence, Baker's fleet sprang into action. The ancient ships moved into position around the facility, their advanced shielding technology powering up to levels never before seen. "All ships, channel maximum power to shields," Baker ordered. "We need to create an energy barrier to contain the blast. Push the technology to its limits if you have to." The air around the facility began to shimmer as the energy barrier took shape. On the ground, Chen and his team raced against time, fighting their way out of the facility as the implosion sequence counted down. In orbit, Baker watched the tactical displays with breathless expectation. The fate of millions hung in the balance as human and alien technology worked in concert, striving to contain the awesome power about to be unleashed. As the final seconds ticked away, Baker gripped the arms of his command chair. The view screens flared white as the quantum singularity collapsed, releasing an explosion of unimaginable power. The energy barrier strained against the onslaught, fluctuating wildly as it fought to contain the blast. For a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity, no one dared to breathe. Then slowly the blinding light began to fade. The energy barrier held, containing the worst of the explosion's effects. Baker let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. "Status report," he demanded. Aria's voice filled the bridge, tinged with what almost sounded like awe. "The superweapon has been neutralized, Admiral. The energy barrier successfully contained 93.7% of the blast. Civilian casualties are minimal." A cheer went up from the bridge crew, quickly echoed across the communication channels of the joint fleet. But Baker knew their work was just the beginning. The Ladosian threat had been neutralized, but the galaxy had changed irrevocably. As he prepared to contact the Council and begin the long process of rebuilding, Baker couldn't help but wonder what new challenges awaited humanity in this brave new galactic landscape. As Baker contemplated the challenges that lay ahead, the ancient fleet systems began to falter. Warning alarms blared across the bridge, jolting the Admiral from his thoughts. "Admiral, we're experiencing cascading failures throughout the fleet," Aria reported, her voice tinged with urgency. "The energy barrier is straining our systems beyond their limits." Baker gripped his command chair, his fist clenched. "Divert all non-essential power to maintaining the barrier. We can't let it fail now." On the surface of the Ladosian homeworld, Colonel Chen and his team sprinted through the corridors of the superweapon facility. The ground beneath their feet trembled as the implosion sequence neared its climax. "Move it, people!" Chen shouted over the din of alarms and crumbling infrastructure. "We've got less than a minute before this place goes up." The team fought through waves of desperate Ladosian forces, their weapons fire adding to the chaos. Rodriguez took point, clearing a path with precise bursts from his pulse rifle. As they neared the exit, a massive explosion rocked the facility. Chen stumbled, nearly losing his footing. He glanced back to see a wall of energy surging towards them. "Everyone out now!" he roared, pushing his team through the final doorway. The world around them erupted in a blinding flash of light. Chen felt the heat of the blast on his back as he dove for cover. The ground heaved and buckled beneath him, and for a moment he thought they'd failed to escape in time. In orbit, Baker watched in awe as the energy barrier strained against the unimaginable force of the implosion. The view screens flickered and died, overloaded by the intensity of the blast. For several heart-stopping seconds, the bridge was plunged into darkness. When the emergency lights finally flickered to life, Baker found himself holding his breath. "Aria, status report." The AI's voice came through, distorted by static. "Energy barrier. Holding, Admiral. 93% containment achieved. Ladosian defenses disabled. Our fleet, significant damage sustained." Baker allowed himself a moment of relief before springing into action. "Begin damage assessment immediately and get me a status update on Colonel Chen's team." On the planet's surface, Chen pulled himself from the rubble, his ears ringing from the blast. He did a quick head count, relief washing over him as he saw his team emerge, battered but alive. "Rodriguez, sit rep," Chen called out, coughing as he inhaled the dust-filled air. The veteran soldier scanned their surroundings with a portable sensor. "Sir, the superweapon's been destroyed, but the damage to the surrounding area is extensive. I'm picking up widespread power outages and infrastructure collapse for hundreds of kilometers." Chen's comm unit crackled to life, Admiral Baker's voice coming through. "Colonel, report your status." "Team is intact, sir," Chen responded. "Mission accomplished. But we're looking at a humanitarian crisis down here. The Ladosian population—" Baker cut him off. "I understand, Colonel. Stand by for new orders." The Admiral turned to his bridge crew, his mind racing. The Ladosian threat had been neutralized, but at a terrible cost. Millions of civilians now faced the prospect of a planet-wide disaster. "Aria, initiate Protocol Mercy," Baker commanded. "All combat-capable ships are to switch to relief operations immediately. I want medical supplies, food, and emergency power generators deployed to the surface as soon as possible." The AI's response was immediate. Protocol Mercy initiated, Admiral. Redirecting fleet resources now. As the human ships began their descent to the Ladosian surface, Baker opened a channel to Ambassador Zorn on the Council station. Ambassador, the immediate threat has been neutralized, but we're facing a humanitarian crisis on the Ladosian homeworld. I request immediate assistance from all available Council resources. Zorn's holographic image nodded gravely. Understood, Admiral. I'll mobilize our allies immediately. And there are developments here you should be aware of. The old Council structure is collapsing. We're in the process of forming a new governing body, with Earth at its center. Baker absorbed this news, recognizing its monumental implications, but his focus remained on the immediate crisis. We'll discuss the political ramifications later, Ambassador. For now, let's focus on saving lives. As the first human ships touched down on Ladosian soil, they were met not with hostility, but with a mixture of fear and desperate hope. Ladosian civilians, many injured and shell-shocked, watched in disbelief as their former enemies began distributing aid and medical supplies. Colonel Chen, now coordinating relief efforts on the ground, approached a group of Ladosian civilians huddled near a makeshift shelter. He held out a ration pack, his universal translator conveying his words. "We're here to help," Chen said, his voice firm but compassionate. "Your leader's actions don't define your people. Let us work together to rebuild." A Ladosian woman, cradling an injured child, hesitantly reached out to accept the offering. Her eyes met Chen's, filled with a complex mix of emotions, gratitude, confusion, and the first glimmer of hope. As news of the human aid efforts spread across the planet, the Ladosian population's perception began to shift. Protests erupted in cities across the globe, with citizens demanding answers from their government and expressing solidarity with the human relief workers. In the planet's capital, a massive crowd gathered outside the central government complex. Their chants echoed through the streets, calling for accountability and change. Inside, the remaining hardline factions of the Ladosian leadership scrambled to maintain control. Prime Minister Vex, his once immaculate uniform now disheveled, barked orders at his remaining loyal staff. "Prepare my personal shuttle. We must regroup off-world and—" His words were cut short as the doors to his office burst open. A group of Ladosian military officers, led by General Karn, entered the room, their expressions grim. "Prime Minister Vex," Karn announced, his voice carrying the weight of judgment. "You are hereby relieved of duty. Your actions have brought our people to the brink of destruction. It's time to answer for your crimes." As Vex and his cohorts were led away in restraints, the news of their arrest spread rapidly. The crowds outside the government complex erupted in cheers, marking the beginning of a new chapter in Ladosian history. In orbit, Admiral Baker received word of the Ladosian government's collapse. He allowed himself a moment of satisfaction before turning his attention back to the crisis at hand. The work of rebuilding and healing had only just begun, and humanity's role in shaping the galaxy's future was now more crucial than ever.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.